Today on Inquirer. Health Secretary Ted Herbosa says President Bongbong Marcos sees the Philippines' COVID-19 health emergency already de facto lifted. Pagasa declares onset of El Niño and sees it to intensify in coming months. House of Representatives expects nearly back to normal State of the Nation address this year. Paul Soriano back as Sona director. And Senators slam depiction of China's 9-dash line in Barbie movie. Vietnam bans distribution of film. Good evening. Health Secretary Ted Herbosa says President Bongbong Marcos sees the Philippines' COVID-19 health emergency is already de facto lifted. Jean Mangaluz has the report.
President Bongbong Marcos believes that the country's COVID-19 health emergency has been de facto lifted, says Health Chief Teodoro Herbosa. Herbosa was asked about the president's stance on his recommendation to have the state of public health emergency lifted.
Ang sabi niya kasi, de facto, parang naka-lift na rin tayo, di ba? Kasi optional na ang masking, di ba?
The secretary says that the Department of Health is only awaiting for the formal declaration. When asked when the formal order of the president will be announced, Herbosa simply says soon. The president's instruction to the DOH chief was to recover from COVID and to get back the economy due to losses from restrictions. Herbosa states that the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases had already recommended the lifting, but the Office of the President had to further review the proposal. An issue regarding the lifting arose as an emergency use authorization was needed for the bivalent vaccines. Herbosa, however, says that Pfizer was already given a certificate of product registration from the Food and Drug Administration, making bivalent vaccines commercially available. The DOH chief says, however, that people still need to protect themselves even if the state of emergency is lifted. This is Jean Mangaluz reporting for INQUIRER.net.
The Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration officially declares the onset of El Niño. Pagasa's Climate Monitoring and Prediction Section Chief Ana Liza Solis reveals that El Niño is highly likely to become strong in the coming months.
Dahil po dyan, ang ENSO Alert and Warning System ng Pagasa ay nakataas or naka-upgrade sa El Niño Advisory, and El Niño Advisory number 1 will be issued today. El Niño is present in the tropical Pacific and will persist until the first quarter of 2024, showing signs of strengthening in the coming months. So meaning po ay weak El Niño pa yung nararamdaman natin, but there are models na mataas po ang probability of more than 56% that El Niño ay maging moderate to strong at least during the last quarter of this year.
Weather Bureau also says Metro Manila and 35 other areas may experience a dry spell in December this year due to the effects of El Niño. Pagasa defines a dry spell as 3 consecutive months of rainfalls that are below the normal conditions, translating to 21 to 60% reduction in average rainfall. Potential drought or way below normal rainfall within 3 months is expected in Camarines Norte and Southern Leyte by December. This translates to more than 60% reduction in average rainfall. Meanwhile, 28 areas around the country are expected to have dry conditions by year-end. Dry condition is defined by 2 consecutive months of below normal rainfall. This is about a 21 to 60% reduction from the average rainfall. The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology notes more sulfur dioxide flux in Mayon volcano. Phivolcs says Mayon registered a sulfur dioxide flux of 1,558 metric tons on average from 5 a.m. of July 3 to 5 a.m. of July 4. This is higher than the 962 metric tons of sulfur dioxide that the volcano spewed from 5 a.m. of July 2 to 5 a.m. of July 3. Volcanic gases like sulfur dioxide could irritate the eyes, skin, and respiratory system. From 5 a.m. of July 3 to 5 a.m. of July 4, state volcanologists also recorded 6 dome collapse pyroclastic density currents, which lasted for 3 minutes, and 1 front lava collapse pyroclastic density currents. Phivolcs also logged 257 rockfall events and 1 volcanic earthquake. Mayon volcano is predicted to remain restive for a few months since it was placed under alert level 3 on June 8. The Office of the Vice President continues to decline to comment on the Commission on Audit findings regarding its procurement process. The OVP instead responds to ACT Teachers Party List Representative Franz Castro's criticism. Castro brought attention to the OVP's purported shortcuts in the procurement procedure, as highlighted by COA. In its report, the COA said that the OVP failed to follow procurement rules after it immediately built satellite offices nationwide. Since Monday, reporters have persistently sought the OVP's reaction to the COA report. Responding to Castro's critique on Tuesday, the OVP says the procurement of the satellite office equipment was not mired in corruption. It adds that the cost of the satellite office equipment was validated by COA and eventually passed the audit. The OVP adds that if Castro read the COA papers, quote, it would have saved them the time and energy to conjure wild speculations about OVP spending. The upcoming State of the Nation address of President Bongbong Marcos would be nearly back to normal as the House of Representatives anticipate more attendees than the previous year. According to House Secretary General Reginald Velasco, they expect the plenary's 1,700 to 2,000 seating capacity to be filled up. Velasco assures attendees that they will provide contingency measures, especially since around 400 seats were removed when the House was remodeled the plenary. He also confirms that Presidential Advisor for Creative Communications Paul Soriano would still be in charge of directing the Sona, but there might be other people tapped to help him. Earlier, the House officials said that COVID-19 health protocols like testing and filling out of health declaration forms would no longer be needed for vaccinated guests of the Sona. Meanwhile, the Philippine National Police will deploy around 5,000 of its personnel for the Sona. According to Quezon City Police District Director Police Brigadier General Nicolas Torre III, around 2,000 police will come from his district, which will be supported by 3,000 cops outside the city. Senators slammed the depiction of China's 9-dash line in the highly anticipated motion picture Barbie. The 9-dash line is used on Chinese maps to represent its claims over areas in the South China Sea, including the West Philippine Sea. In a statement, Senator Francis Tolentino says if the 9-dash line was indeed depicted in the movie and Television Review and Classification Board, or MTRCB, should ban it. He stresses that this act denigrates Philippine sovereignty. In a separate statement, Senator Jinggoy Estrada urges the MTRCB to take a firm stand and ban the commercial screening of the motion picture in the Philippines. Estrada says it is a sensitive issue and contrary to our national interest. Meanwhile, Senator Risa Ontiveros says the 9-dash line is fiction, just like the movie. The film's distribution has been banned in Vietnam for what their Department of Cinema calls an offending image of the 9-dash line. Vietnam and China have long had overlapping territorial claims in the South China Sea. Amin naman natin ang mainit na balita sa mundo ng showbiz kasama si Irvin Santiago ng Bandera. Irvin?
Hi Neil at sa lahat ng mga kabandera natin all over the universe. Ito na nga ang latest Bandera Chika. Kung may isang original at legit double cast na talagang super close sa TV host comedian na si Buboy Villar, yan ay walang iba kundi si Jose Manalo. Ayon kay Buboy, totoong tinawagan at kinausap niya si Jose noong kasagsagan ng pangninega at pambabash sa kanya, pati na sa iba pang mga bagong host ng Eat Bulaga sa GMA7. Parang tunay na kuya na raw ang turing niya kay Jose dahil matagal-tagal na rin silang magkaibigan at madalas din daw silang nagkakasama sa mga out of town at out of the country shows, kaya mas lalo pa raw silang naging close. Nabanggit din ni Buboy na talagang nagpaalam at nagpasintabi siya kay Jose at sa iba pang double cuts nang tanggapin niya ang offer ng Tape Incorporated para mapabilang sa mga bagong host ng Eat Bulaga. Aminado rin ang Kapuso star na matinding kaba ang naramdaman niya nung una siyang sumalang sa longest running noontime show sa bansa dahil sa bilis ng mga pangyayari. Bukod kay Jose, tinawagan din daw niya ang ilang kaibigan sa GMA7, kabilang na ang Kapuso actor na si Roro Madrid. na naging bahagi rin ng Itbulaga sa loob ng ilang buwan kasama ang girlfriend niyang si Bianca Umali.
Ang bilis po talaga ng pangyayari. Nung kinailangan nila ako, agad-agad po kami nag-meeting na kasama sila, Kuya Paulo. So agad, nag-rehearsal din agad kami. So, sobrang late pa po sa akin mag-punch in lahat ng mga nangyayari po sa akin. Sa totoo po, yung po talaga yun, sa totoo nun. Tinawagan ko si Kuya Jose kasi tututusin, si Kuya Jose ay talagang kuya ko po yan. Sa mga hindi lang po nakakala. Pero sabi ko lang, Kuya Jose, sana maintindihan mo rin ako. Sabi niya sa akin, ano ka ba? Wala naman sa akin yan. Okay lang sa akin. So, sa akin, dahil siguro po, na-pressure po ako dahil po sa mga sinasabi. Kaya ako po naramdaman yun. Trabaho to at alam ko maintindihan ni Kuya Jose. I'm sure, nila boss, nila TVJ, maintindihan po nila yan.
At yan ang bandera chika natin today. Thanks, Neil.
Maraming salamat, Sir Irvin, and these are the stories you need to know today. I'm Neil Mercado. Follow INQUIRER.net on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Reddit. For more stories, visit INQUIRER.net. Good evening.